So I mentioned in an earlier video that there were two reasons why I don't keep the contents inside the sanka for the talismans that are made for the exhibits. And one of those reasons is that I hang the pasanki as part of the exhibits, and so I put a wire through the center of the two holes so that I can hang it. The other reason is that because the contents can sometimes explode, I know that a gallery space is not going to look very kindly on a very smelly and broken pasanka. And you never know what might cause them to explode. Sometimes, though, people get curious and they want to touch. I had, during my first exhibit, I had the various displays, and they were in a public space. And there was a children's, it was the public, it was sort of the lounge of the local theater. And so there would be various plays and dances and things like that that people would be doing in the auditorium. And there was this one evening where it was going to be a children's show, and so one of the little girls who loved the displays was really curious, and of course with children they're tactile creatures, so she reached up and she grabbed onto one of the pasanki and it crushed, and she was devastated. She was really devastated. Her parents were devastated. The people who were who had commissioned the show, or not commissioned, but who had given permission for me to have the show there, knew well enough about the ways in which these were ceremonial objects, so they kept all the fragments. They put it in a little paper cup. They kept all the fragments and were really cautious around telling me what had happened. They were probably afraid I was going to react in some way that was not kind. But I understand children and I understand their curiosity. So luckily, because I know how to do what I do, I was able to make a duplicate in over just a weekend, and brought it in to replace the one that had been crushed. And what's interesting is that with pasanki, it said that if the pasanka breaks, that its medicine is complete. And what I mean by that is that the intention of the prayers, the job it was supposed to do, is done. And so see that as a positive thing. And that's what I felt when I was told that the little girl had broken the pasanka. I was like, oh, well, the medicine is complete. That's all. So I took the fragments, and the rules are the same whether you're working with the fragments or you're working with the actual whole talisman. So that if you're going to release any of these ceremonial objects, any of these particular medicines, there's one of three ways that you release them. The first release is through fire. You work with the elementals. So you can burn it, or you can put it to wild running water. So just send it downriver. Put it in, a stream, maybe a lake. And you can also bury it. So one of three ways of completing the cycle of the medicine, working with the elementals. So when I bury these, as I mentioned in a previous video, you bury it in a place where no feet will walk upon it, because it is sacred. And if you're going to burn it in the appropriate season. You can burn it out of season, but you have to be, again, mindful, not just of the fact that we're working with fire, but because you're working with certain forces. So in the Slavic practices, there's two seasons, the season of light and the season of dark. Generally speaking, in the season of light, you would work with burying and or water as the primary ways of releasing medicine. You can still burn, but those are the primary forces. And during the season of dark, you would work primarily with fire or burying or water. But again, the primary one would be fire. Learning the richness of various traditions and the layers and layers of traditions helps you to make decisions about how you're going to work with it in a modern context, how you're going to work with the various understandings, the lore, the lore and the rules, and where do you adapt the rules because you understand the principle that those rules were made under, and where do you keep them integral? Don't adapt them, don't change them. That comes from a lot of listening, deep practice, having a connection, forming relationships with your ancestors, forming relationships with the lands around you, the peoples of the lands around you, if you can. And also forming deep experiential practice and knowledge of the traditions without jumping first to, I'm going to make this my own, but rather allowing it to integrate into your body being in a way where you can understand its essential nature. That's a big working.